Thank you all for joining today's webinar. From Manage Engine family, we would like to extend our warm welcome to all our partners, users, and customers who are evaluating our solution. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jayalakshmi, and I'm a product consultant associated with Manage Engine for over 4 years. I take care of Manage Engine products, including Endpoint Central. I'm a seasoned technical support engineer assisting customers in case of implementation, consultation, and troubleshooting in case of any challenges. Once again, I welcome you all to the Endpoint Central training program. We are in week 1, where we are going to discuss about remediating known vulnerabilities with Automate Patch Management out of 6 series. I have our upcoming training series, which includes securing endpoints from unknown vulnerabilities with unified endpoint security, app deployment, removal, application control, data security for legacy and modern endpoints, asset management for modern devices, OS provisioning and remote management of endpoints, setting up legacy devices and onboarding modern devices. If you are interested in our upcoming training series, you can register using the link mentioned in the slide. You can also claim your participation certificate on completing the series of courses. The webinar recording will be sent to the registered participants. In today's webinar, we are going to discuss how we can remediate the known vulnerabilities using the patch management module available within Endpoint Central using comprehensive deployment policies and Automate patch deployment modules that are available. The agenda for today is the overview of patch management module, priority patching, which is identifying the critical applications and patching them, how we can use Endpoint Central for upgrading machines that are in Windows 10 to Windows 11, strategic patch management for roaming endpoints, compliance with CIS module, and we have piled up the questions, some frequently asked questions from the last webinar, which will be discussed. In this training series, we will be using Endpoint Central Server Build version 11.3.2428.18 for this presentation, and this application supports all the browsers. What is Unified Endpoint Management? A popular research analyst, Forrester, defines Unified Endpoint Management as products that provide a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices from a single console. So ideally, Endpoint Central is a wholesome unified endpoint management that has product management and security features available under one single roof. Endpoint Central comprises of features for under management. It comprises of features like Automate Update Management, Remote Device Management, Asset Intelligence, Application Management, and Configuration Management. Under security portfolios, it includes modules like data loss prevention, web protection, device compliance, analytics and reporting, app control and device control, and ransomware protection. The endpoints supported by Manage Engine Endpoint Central includes desktops, laptops, ATM machines, tablets, mobile devices, Chromebooks, and browsers. The core capabilities of Endpoint Central includes endpoint management, end-user experience management, and endpoint security. In endpoint management, you can take care of onboarding of the devices, asset management, which takes care of the inventory, configuration management, with which you can push file folder, registry, setting up environment variables, and so on. OS lifecycle deployment, with which you can deploy OS using PXE, USB, and zero-touch deployment. Application lifecycle management, which is taken care under software management module, where you can create a package and push the package across to the endpoints that are currently being managed. Automate patch deployment, which can help you to deploy automate patch management using Manage Engine Endpoint Central. Remote control, with which you can take remote of end user's machine for troubleshooting. Under end user experience management, we have a product called Endpoint Analytics that you can integrate with Endpoint Central. You can configure a baseline score. Scenarios like CPU usage is quite high, memory usage is high after a deployment of patch, C drive disk space is full. Without the end user, instead of waiting for the end users to submit help desk tickets, you can monitor this activity with the Endpoint Analytics module, which in turn will reduce the help desk tickets coming in. Under endpoint security, you can make sure unauthorized or non-business application will not be accessible by the user under application control. Device control for restricting the external peripheral devices. Web protection, which takes care of web traffic. That is, you can make sure only business sites can be accessed by the user. Privilege management for elevating the application. Vulnerability management, which takes care of the threats module. And vulnerability management is dependent on the patch management module. When you have frequent automate patch deployment tasks running, which will in turn help you for remediating the vulnerability. Finally, next-gen antivirus, which is the EDR module available within Endpoint Central. Having said that, let me take you to the Manage Engine console. This is your Endpoint Central console. And under endpoint management activities, we discussed about the configuration module, which is available over here. Using the configuration module, you can deploy custom script, registry related configuration, file folder related configurations, environment variable for all three operating systems. The application of Endpoint Central will be hosted on a Windows-based asset, whereas the product supports cross platforms. This is where we talk about agent onboarding. We have Endpoint Central is an agent-based model. It is available as both as an on-premise and cloud solution, and it is an agent-based model. We have ample amount of methods that are available for onboarding the agent machines. Once the agent machine is onboarded, the hardware and software related inventory data will be captured under the inventory module. You have a granular reports available that you can fetch with respect to the hardware and software related inventory. Next one is a software deployment module, where if you would like to push any software or if any new machine comes in, if you want the set of softwares to be default pushed to the end user systems, you can make use of the self-service portal. And without waiting for the help desk ticket, you can push those applications that needs to be default available to the end user systems. The next one is the security modules that are available within Endpoint Central. And the next one is the Endpoint Analytics module, where you will configure a baseline score and agent will compare the baseline score with the existing score that you have configured. If the free disk space is less than 30 GB, an alert will be triggered under the Insight section. And you can make use of the troubleshooting. You can make use of the troubleshooting or the statements that are available under Insights and compare what could be the common reason for all the machines that is causing the C drive disks to be full, and create workflow or sensor based on this. You also have an option to create a deployment for a limited number of machines with respect to Endpoint Analytics, and it is available as a standalone, and you also have an option to integrate it within Endpoint Central. Under security, we have module called device control for restricting the users from using unauthorized external peripheral devices. Endpoint DLP, which can restrict the sensitive data from being transferred from the end user systems. Hardware protection, which is our EDR module. BitLocker management for encrypting Windows devices. For encrypting Mac devices, you can make use of the MDM module, file vault encryption. Browsers for controlling web traffic. You can restrict the users from accessing non-business sites. Finally, application control, with which you can restrict the users from accessing non-business applications. The supported operating system includes Windows, Windows servers, Mac, and Linux. On the screen, you see the variety of flavors that are currently supported. If you have any operating system flavor that you would like to know if we would support it, you can feel free to contact our support email, which is mentioned in this slide. Across the globe, users and customers has certified Endpoint Central has a unified endpoint management solution, and multiple awards and accolades has been received under the same under various forums, right from 2018 to 2024. Now, in this training series, we are going to discuss majorly about the patch management module available within Endpoint Central. Patch management module is available as a standalone product in both on-premise and cloud-based solution. Now, let us understand the use case. John, who is one of our customers, managing a chain of restaurants across multiple locations and managing 10,000 machines in Endpoint Central. Let us see how John will be able to take care of the patch management module for all his managed computers using Endpoint Central. John can place the Endpoint Central server on any Windows-based asset in his head office. Machines that are connected over the LAN, they are going to receive the patches from the server that is placed on the head office. In order to manage the machines across the branch offices, to minimize the internet bandwidth and the server load, we recommend John to place a distribution server on each location. So instead of all the client machines directly reaching the server on the head office for receiving the patches, the distribution server machines alone will contact the server. They will download the patches and distribute it to the machines that are reporting under them. Now, managing the machines that are connected over the internet and via VPN is going to be a challenging task. For the machines that are connected over the VPN, he can make use of the deployment to make sure the patches will be downloaded directly from the internet. For the machines that are connected over the internet, we recommend John to place a secure gateway server, which will be the intermediate server between the roaming machine and the Endpoint Central server. The Endpoint Central server will not be directly published to the internet, whereas the secure gateway server will act as an intermediate. John can have a common FQDN, which will be NATed between the Endpoint Central primary and the secure gateway server. The roaming machines will establish the connectivity via the secure gateway server, which will authenticate and forward the request. On the screen, you are seeing the secure gateway server architecture. So these are all the roaming machines, and these are all the machines across the branch offices. Branch office machines, the distribution server alone will contact the primary server for downloading the patches, and it will distribute it to the machines that are reporting under the distribution server. Machines that are connected over the internet, they will contact the secure gateway server, and they will reach the secure gateway server with the FQDN, which will be validated and then forwarded to the primary server. If you go to admin, server settings, here you will configure the FQDN, with which the agents will establish connectivity to the Endpoint Central primary server. Let us see how patch management actually works. Initially, the patches will be detected on the endpoints, which will be downloaded on the server. The downloaded patches will be tested, approved, and then proceeded with the installation for the production machines. Now, John has to achieve this use case using Endpoint Central in his environment. Over 1,000 applications can be supported across Windows, Mac, and Linux, and third-party application. If you would like to know the list of applications that are supported by Patch Manager Plus and Endpoint Central, you can visit the link mentioned in the slide. We have received number of requests on the patches that are currently supported within Patch Manager Plus and Endpoint Central. We support security-only patches and monthly rollouts, and security-only patches for Windows 7 and Windows 8.1, cumulative updates, feature pack, optional updates for Windows 10 and 11, supporting .NET frameworks, updates for all Windows 7, 8.1, 10, and servers. Microsoft extended support of security updates for EOL operating system, provided ESU licenses procured. Supports automatic handling for servicing stack updates and definition updates. Supports patching for Windows Server, Mac, and Linux Server patching. On the screen, you're currently seeing the Microsoft Feature Pack service updates. Initially, the graph started in 2000, where the updates were infrequently released, and it was quite big, so that it made it difficult for the IT administrators to patch them. Now, Microsoft has extended free feature pack service up to 18 to 30 months from the date of release, and the updates are quite frequent, where they release the patches second Tuesday of every month. On the screen, you're currently seeing the PCs in the Microsoft Test Lab, whereas PCs in the typical enterprise environment. In Microsoft Test Lab, they ensure that all the updates are tested and the machines are fully patched, rather than giving importance to the critical and important updates first. Whereas in a typical enterprise environment, we tend to deploy critical and important updates, and we will not be giving most importance to the rest of the updates that are available. We understand that importance is given for critical and important patches first, but it is recommended to deploy the rest of the patches at least in the third and fourth week of the deployment. On the screen, you are currently seeing the patch management architecture. The primary server will be placed on the head office. You can place a distribution server on your branch offices. When you create a patch deployment task, the server will download the patches, which in turn will distribute the patches to the machines reporting under them. And for the machines that are currently connected over the internet, you can enable direct download. where the machines which are connected over the internet, they will not rely on the physical server for patching. Or John, in order to achieve patching efficiently, he can sign up and he can start using the cloud infrastructure which is available within Endpoint Central and Patch Manager Plus. In case if he thinks that he should not rely on any server for patching, and if the patching has to be done directly over the internet, he can sign up for Patch Manager Plus Cloud and start onboarding the endpoints. Now we are going to discuss about strategic patch management, which involves testing of patches and approving them. Priority patching, testing, and approving the critical patches. John, being an administrator, has been provided with a use case to create a custom group with a pilot group of test machines, create a customized deployment policy for pilot group, and notify the user about the deployment, get notified about the patching status, create approval for tested patches. Let us see how John will be able to achieve this within Endpoint Central. In Endpoint Central, we have a module called Patch Management, with which John can achieve this use case. To start with, John has to create a test environment. That is, he might manage 10,000 endpoints, but in those 10,000 endpoints, he should decide in which machines he is going to test the patches. So first, John has to go to admin, custom group, and create a group of machines in which the patch is going to be tested. There are three modes of grouping available. One is static, static unique, and dynamic. Static and static unique both are more or less the same, where John can select and drag and drop the machines and create a custom group. Whereas it is similar to static unique, but once the machine is a part of static unique group, it cannot be added to the other two groups. Dynamic grouping, John can create custom group based on system properties like operating system. If he wants to group the machines based on operating system, service pack, OS version, computer type, in that case, he can proceed with dynamic based grouping. The best recommended approach is that if John is managing Windows 10, Windows 11, 23H2, 24H2, it is recommended to ensure all the machines, at least one machine, whatever the flavors he is maintaining, is included in the test group, so that all the patches will be tested rather than testing it for one specific instance. After creating the test group, John has to now create a deployment policy for deploying the patches to the test group. He can either make use of the predefined deployment policies that are already in place, or he can create a deployment policy on his own. He can choose which week split type to go with, either the regular or based on Patch Tuesday. He can select the deployment schedule over here. And in pre-deployment activity, if he wants to reboot the machines, he can enable pre-deployment reboot. In detail about deployment policy, we will be discussing it later. But as a second step, John has to create a deployment policy for the patches to be tested. By default, whenever a patch is released from Manage Engine, it will be tested and validated with checksum. But as an administrator, if John wishes to test in his environment, he can click on Add Group over here. He can select the custom group target he has created and select the updates he wishes to test. And here, if John wants to wait for a couple of days from the release date and then deploy the patches to the test environment, he can choose the number of days he wishes to wait. And here he will select the deployment policy he has created. And he can enable the email notification. Whenever there is a patch approval or the patch download or a deployment failure, he will be notified. And now here comes the approval part. Either he can make use of automatic approval, like whenever a patch is downloaded and installed successfully in the test machine, it will be automatically approved after the number of days he has selected here, or he can go with manual approval. And in this instance, if he wishes to test a specific application rather than all the application, that is also possible. He can go to patch specific application. In this use case, he wishes to test only Office 365 updates. So he can select patch specific application, show only install, and he can select Office 365 application from here. So only those patches will be tested and approved based on his setting that he has configured here, either automatic approval or manual approval. Once the patch is installed successfully on any of the machine without any failure, the patch will be either approved automatically. But if he wishes to go with manual approval for any reason, he has to click on the group that he has created and then approve it manually. Let me show you how it works. Now I have created a deployment task. If I go to patch view, here I will have an option for approving the patch manually. And now during this testing phase, if I come across any patch which is causing an issue, if I wish to decline it, I can decline the patch as well so that it is no longer available for deployment. This is how John will be able to test the patches and ensure only the tested patches are deployed to his production machines with the help of test and approve feature that is available within Endpoint Central. Now, it is possible that you can upgrade the Windows 10 machines to Windows 11 using the patch management module, which is available within Endpoint Central. Now, in order to deploy the feature pack for Windows 11, I need to know if my machines are ready or compatible for Windows 11 update. You have an inventory report within Endpoint Central, which can tell you the machines that are eligible for Windows 11 upgrade. So upon executing this report, you will have a data on how many machines are actually applicable or compatible for Windows 11. Once you get the data, you can go ahead with the patches, supported patches, search for feature pack update, and then deploy it for the deployment. And the major criteria here is that the feature pack updates are dependent on the ISO file. So you will have to manually download the ISO file and upload them since it is dependent on the patches, since it is dependent on the ISO. So if you go to patches, downloaded patches, here under upload patches, you will see the place where you can upload the dependency for the ISO files. Reason being, it needs a specific license for downloading the ISO, and each environment will have different modes of license file or license credentials that will be applicable. It is not possible for us to bypass all the credentials. That is why it is supported this way. So this way you can ensure the Windows 10 machines will be upgraded to Windows 11 using the patch management module available within Endpoint Central. Now, how do I patch roaming machines? For roaming machines, if the machines are connected over the VPN, then the server will be able to download and deploy the patches to the agent machines. For the machines that are connected over the internet, if I do not wish to rely on the server for patching, I can enable direct download. So the agent will receive the deployment task from the server, but the patches will be directly downloaded from the vendor side. Now let us see how you can achieve this within Endpoint Central. In patch management, under script repository, you have an option where you can enable direct download. Enabling this, deploying this configuration will enable direct download, and it is a one-time setting. So once you enable the direct download, the agent machines will be able to directly download it from the directly download the patches from the internet straight away rather than relying on the server. It is a one-time configuration. So once you can create a deployment configuration by deploying this enable direct download, which is a one-time setting. Once it is configured, the agents will be able to directly download the patches from the internet rather than relying on any physical server for patching. And in order to enable this, you need to ensure that you have a latest build of Endpoint Central running and enable the setting for the agents to directly download the patches. Now we need to create a set of deployment policies for work from home machines. We need to allow the users to skip the deployment. We need to schedule the reboot policy for the end users to apply the patch. Let us see how we can achieve this using the deployment schedule that is available within Endpoint Central. You can go to deployment policies, create policy. You can choose which week split type you would like to go with, either the regular split or based on Patch Tuesday. If you wish to deploy the patches based on Patch Tuesday, you can select which week, which day, and between what schedule the deployment should happen. Based on your choice, you can either choose the regular or the Patch Tuesday week. And you have this option where you can ensure when the agent should download the patches, either during the deployment window or anytime agent contacts the server. The agent will contact the server every 90 minutes. So when you enable this setting and when your deployment window is starting at 10 a.m., before 10 a.m. when the refresh interval gets completed, agent will download the patches and keep it. But the deployment of patch will happen only during this interval you have configured. Enabling this setting will ensure that deployment time will not be delayed. And you have also another option where you can choose when the deployment should be initiated, either during the system startup or refresh cycle. You can choose either of these, whichever happens earlier. Few applications, by default, its behavior would be that when it is open, it cannot be patched. For such application, the deployment will be initiated during the startup when you enable this option. Under pre-deployment activity, we are going to configure wake on LAN option, and this is applicable only if the machines are in the same LAN. So this option can be used when the machines are in shutdown state or low power mode. And if any pre-deployment activity is pending or pre-deployment reboot is pending because of any patch, you can make use of pre-deployment reboot and ensure the machines are rebooted without any pending reboot. And if you don't want the server machines to be rebooted, you can exclude the reboot for server and notify the end user about the pre-deployment reboot. Under custom script, along with the patch deployment, if you wish to include any custom script like a PowerShell or a batch script, you can make use of this custom script option, which is available within Patch Manager Plus under the deployment schedule. In pre-deployment notification, if you want to notify the end users about the deployment, you can. And if the end user is in the middle of a critical task where they cannot entertain any patch deployment task at that time, you can enable an option for the users to skip the deployment. And if the user is going to continuously skip the deployment, you can force it at some point. And when you have enabled an option for the user to skip the deployment, and if there is no activity or without, if the system remains idle for 30 minutes, for example, before the deployment window, if you enable this option, deployment will be initiated without user notification. Under post-deployment activity, we are going to configure the reboot schedule. Either you can reboot the machine forcefully once the deployment is completed and also still exclude the reboot for server from being forcefully rebooted, or you can choose delay reboot and specify your time interval where the user can skip the reboot. Or you can choose user-defined time where they can select their own time and reboot the endpoints. And in this also, you have an option where you can exclude reboot for server. This option is applicable only for Windows. And the custom script option post the patch deployment is also available. So if you would like to include any custom script for the patch management activity before and after the patch deployment, you can include the custom script and deploy it along with the deployment schedule. Each patch deployment configuration should be associated with the deployment policy. So you need to ensure the deployment policy is created as per your requirements so that we will not result in subsequent reboots. When you enable an option for the user to skip the reboot, this is how the screen will be. User can select their own interval and then choose the specific time where the machine can be rebooted. If the user would like to postpone the restart, they can select postpone restart and select the time at what time the machine needs to be rebooted. And if you want to create a deployment policy for the servers in Office, so the patch deployment should happen only between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., wake up and deploy force reboot except server, that can be configured. Let us see how the deployment schedule can be configured. So in deployment schedule, I'm going to choose regular split. I'm going to select all day. And it is a 24 hours time window. So I want the deployment to happen between 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. so that I don't have any downtime for servers. And in pre-deployment activity, I need to include wake on LAN because servers will be in the same network. In pre-deployment notification, I will not notify any user because it is a server, not a laptop. In post-deployment activity, I'm going to include post-deployment reboot and enable force reboot, and I will include reboot for servers so that it will be forcefully rebooted. In this use case, John has to exclude the reboot for servers, so I will choose exclude reboot, and I will choose delay reboot so that the user can choose their own intervals and then reboot the machine. If John would like to make use of force reboot and still reboot the machines, he can uncheck this option, exclude reboot for servers, and reboot the machines forcefully. So when you enable force reboot, this is how the screen will be. The user will not have an option to postpone the reboot. It will time out and machine will be restarted. The Center for Internet Security has a set of reports to ensure the machines are compliant. So you can generate the system compliance and patch compliance report module, which is available within Endpoint Central. So the patch management module, the overall patch management module is available at a glance, where it is not dependent on any WSUS. We are not relying on any WSUS service for patching. Both server and workstation patching is supported. So we install the product in a Windows-based asset. We support cross-platforms. We support both Microsoft and third-party. Non-Microsoft updates is also supported, including security and non-security under Microsoft. Test and approve automation is supported. Automate patch deployment is supported with flexible deployment policies. Declining patches and applications is supported. Filters and reports can also be generated. Now, so far we have seen how test and approve method works. Now, whatever the patches that are tested in the test environment has to be deployed under the production environment, which is when automate patch deployment task comes into picture. It is a one-time process. When you create an automate patch deployment task for this month, any patch which is going to be released in the subsequent intervals or subsequent months, it's going to be automatically added to the deployment window upon successful scan. Here you will select what updates you want to deploy. So you can select the update, and if you wish to deploy a specific application, you can choose patch specific application. If you want to include third-party updates, you can also include the third-party updates, definition updates, and driver updates. And here you also have an option to deploy patches after a certain number of days from the release or the approval. In case if you do N-1 patching for any reason, you can specify the number of days after the release date from in which the patch needs to be deployed. In deployment settings, you can select the deployment policy you have configured. You also have another option where you can publish the patches to the self-service portal. When you want the users to deploy the patches at their own convenience, instead of deploying it directly via the agent, you can choose publish to self-service portal. So whatever the patches you have selected here, if the user right-clicks on the agent tray icon, there will be an option called self-service portal. When the user selects the self-service portal, the user will see the updates that you have published, from where he can install it at his own convenience. In define target section, you can either target your entire domain, or you also have an option where you can filter the target based on custom group, dynamic custom group, IP address, and IP range. You can configure an email notification in case of any deployment failure, and the status report will be sent to you based on the number of hours you have specified here. In automate patch deployment task, only approved patches will be deployed. Any patch which is not approved will not be deployed via automate patch deployment. Now, once the patch is released from the vendor, we have an external team who frequently crawls the internet to know the latest patches that are released. The server which is hosted in your environment, it will subscribe to our central patch repository, where the engineering team updates the latest patch information. So whatever the latest patches that are released will be available here under the latest patches view. And once the DB sync gets completed, all your agent machines will be scanned. Once the scan gets completed, the latest patches will be moved to the missing patches view, which will give you the latest patch information along with the count of machines which is applicable for the latest patch. From here, as an administrator, I need to ensure that a deployment task is created for deploying these updates to the end user's endpoints. Now, when you create a deployment task, what will happen? The server which is hosted in your environment, in case if you are using the on-premise setup, the server will download the patches, and during the deployment interval or either during the refresh cycle, the agent will download the patch from the server and initiate the deployment based on the deployment schedule. In case if you are using roaming machines with in case if you're using roaming machines where you do not wish to rely on the server and instead enable direct download, agent it will know from where it has to download the patches. Agent will directly download the patch and initiate the deployment. This is how, with the help of automate patch deployment tasks, you can make sure the patches are downloaded and deployed to the respective endpoints. The automate patch deployment will also help you to remediate the vulnerability. The vulnerability module is also dependent on the patch deployment module. So when you have the latest patches running on all your endpoints, the vulnerability will be remediated. Now, automate patch deployment task is fine. But in case if you have a 0-day vulnerability which is released, in case if you wish to deploy the patches for those 0-day vulnerabilities, then manual deployment task will be helpful for you. That is when manual deployment comes into picture. Whenever a zero-day vulnerability is released, you will be notified. So in order to deploy the patches on demand, you can just select the patch ID, which is going to remediate the zero-day vulnerability, and choose install or publish patches, which will take you to the manual deployment section. Even here, you have an option where you can deploy, where the agent deploys the patches on the machines based on the schedule, or you can choose publish to self-service portal, where the end user can deploy the patches at his own convenience. You can the target will be selected automatically since we created it from the missing patches view. Now you can deploy the patches from here for remediating the zero-day vulnerability. One other option for executing the manual deployment is this manual deployment section. You can navigate to deployment, manual deployment, choose select uninstall as install patch, platform, click on add patches and change this from missing patches to all patches. Select the patch you want to add. Select the deployment interval or choose publish to self-service portal and then deploy the patches. Here you need to select the target manually since we have triggered it from this view. So this is how you create a manual deployment task for remediating the zero-day vulnerability. And you can also configure the system's health policy. Any machine which is missing one or more than one critical and important patch, machine will be categorized as highly vulnerable. Any machine which is missing one or more than one moderate and low severity patch will be considered as vulnerable. So in order to ensure the machines are healthy, you need to create deployment tasks, automate and manual deployment tasks whenever required. In case if there is any failure during the automate patch deployment task, you have a remarks section available where you will have a knowledge-based article associated with it so that you will be able to see the reason for deployment failure and take action based on it. So here under remarks section, you will have the respective knowledge-based articles associated with which you can remediate the deployment failure. Automate patch deployment task is a one-time process. In case if the new updates are released, then the scan happens automatically and the patches gets added to the tasks that you have created. So this is how, with the help of automate patch deployment module, you can remediate the vulnerabilities and ensure your endpoints are up to date. Let us take a look at some frequently asked questions. If we have an automate update scheduled for 100 computers, and I choose to have it pre-downloaded patches during the refresh cycle, would all systems still execute the updates in order, or would all systems update at the same time since it should be already downloaded? Okay, in this case, the agent will not wait for the patches to be downloaded because we have enabled an option to download the patches anytime agent contacts the server, which is the refresh interval. So the deployment activity, the agent, it will happen during the subsequent action. So whatever the agent, it will not wait for any deployment interval. The deployment will be initiated based on the schedule. Local office machines are now at work from home. How do I make them contact the Endpoint Central server? All right, for managing the work from home machines, you have two options. You can ensure the users are connecting VPN for them to get access to the Endpoint Central server, or you can implement secure gateway server. Do I need to disable Windows updates if I use Windows patches and updates on Endpoint Central? We recommend you to disable the Windows automatic updates because when you deploy the patches from both entities, that is from the Endpoint Central and also from the Windows automatic update, they're deployed by, we capture the data of how many patches are deployed using Manage Engine. So when you go to this patches and detail view, here you will see an option called deployed using. So that field will capture the data of how many machines has received the patch using Manage Engine. So it will be easier for you to know or submit a report to your management on how many patches were deployed using Manage Engine Endpoint Central. When you do not have any field value in deployed using, that means the deployment has happened either via Windows update, or if it's a third-party application, it has been auto-updated in the background. So we recommend using Endpoint Central as a single entity for patching rather than the Windows update. Is there a way for Endpoint Central to download all the necessary patches and restart only once for the end users? So if there are multiple patches, reboot required patches are installed. By default, the agent will deploy all the patches and restart will be triggered only once based on the schedule you have configured. When I exclude or decline patch, is it removed from the patch management dashboard page? When you decline a patch for all computers, it will be removed from the missing patches view. The patch will no longer be available for deployment. It depends on how you decline it, for all computers or for limited set of computers. You also have an option where you can selectively exclude or permanently exclude. When you want to selectively exclude a patch, when you create a deployment, automate patch deployment task, you have an option to choose the patch specific updates rather than deploying all the applications. Here you can select show install applications. So only the applications which are applicable for your environment will be listed. You can selectively exclude the patch which needs to be excluded from the deployment. Or if you wish to exclude patch application, you can go to patches, decline patches. Here you can select the custom group to which the patch needs to be declined. Here you can either select a specific patch to be declined or application or a family. Like if I want to deploy a specific version of Java, I will choose add patches and choose the Java version I want to decline. If I want to decline Java application completely, then I will add Java to the applications category. If I want to exclude all the Oracle updates, then I will add Oracle as a family. So any patch which belongs to the Oracle family will be excluded. Our business applications misbehave occasionally, and I suspect that recent patch deployment could be the cause. How can I roll back a patch? Patch rollback is supported based on the vendor support. So if any patch which is causing issue, if you would like to roll back the specific patch, you can go to patches, install patches. Here you can see if the patch uninstallation is supported. If the patch uninstallation is supported, you can uninstall the patch using the manual deployment. And during the deployment phase, if you wish to give importance to only for the critical and important patches once, you also have an option where you can filter patches based on severity and start the patch deployment. While deploying the patches, I came across below errors on multiple clients. How do I get this fixed? So these errors are applicable for Office updates, and the unknown error code is for the cumulative update. Fatal error during installation is generally for third-party updates. We have our knowledge-based articles, which is available on the internet. Or else, whenever a patch deployment fails, the relevant KB articles will be associated with the failure remarks, which will ease the process and help you to redeploy the patches by performing the steps mentioned in the article. Is it possible to disable the end user notification on a single machine? For example, if you have a kiosk. If yes, when you want to disable a notification for a single machine, you need to create a specific deployment policy for those set of machines. And in deployment policy section, under pre-deployment user notification, you can disable the user notification so that they will not be notified about the deployment. How soon are the patches available to me after the release by Microsoft? As you know, Microsoft releases the patches second Tuesday of every month. Security updates can be expected within 12 hours, 12 hours, and the rest of the updates will be available within 24 hours. If you would like to know the SLA for the other set of patches, you can visit the link mentioned in the slide where we have the SLA for the patches. I could see a difference in the patches discovered by Endpoint Central against Windows Update. Why? Okay, so the patch information are procured from multiple sites like Microsoft Catalog, Windows Updates, and so on. So since the patch information is procured from multiple updates, you see this difference. How are failed patches handled in test and approve? If a patch is failed during the testing phase, in case if it is going to create an impact because of the failure like blue screen errors, you have a granular option to decline it so that it will not affect your production machines. And you also have the KB articles associated with the deployment, which can help you for remediating the failure. How can I see what are all the patch released in this patch Tuesday cycle and see all the missing systems? In missing patches view here, you also have an option where you can filter patches based on the release date. So you can filter based on the release date to see the latest patches that are released during this deployment cycle. And in dashboard also, you have an option where you will be alerted under latest security news. When you have subscribed for it, you will be alerted whenever the latest patches comes in. Some patches have description of reboot may require. Why is this? Okay, the reason why it is displayed as reboot may require instead of actually if it is yes or no, because few patches dependent on DLL files during the patch deployment. If the DLL files are not loaded properly, patch deployment could not be completed, due to which it is configured as may require. When a new device is onboarded, is there any option to automatically get the updates deployed with the latest patches? When you create a deployment task, or when you associate an automate patch deployment to a dynamic custom group, so whenever patch comes in, based on the dynamic custom group you have configured, the patches will be deployed to those machines, provided you have targeted the same dynamic custom group you have created under automate patch deployment. I have developers in my organization who keep testing apps on endpoints. How do I provide them with privileged access to install updates on their own? All right. So if you do not wish to deploy the patches to their endpoints directly, rather than if you want to push the patches to their endpoints and decide if it needs to be deployed, you can make use of the self-service portal that is available when you create a deployment. Instead of pushing the patches directly to the developers or the engineer's machine, you can publish them where the user can install it at his own convenience. So far we have discussed about the questions that are picked from the previous webinar. Now it is time for the question and answer session. We have our live chat panelist who will be able to answer your queries. I request you to post your queries in the chat section, which will be answered. Repeat, we have our chat panelists who are available. In case if you have any questions with any of the topics that is discussed now, you can feel free to raise them here. We will be able to answer it. I repeat once again, if you have any questions on any of the topics discussed, I encourage you to post them on this chat window where we will be able to answer it. We also request you to rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. We also request you to spread a word about the webinar on any of the social engineering platforms available. The next training schedule for securing endpoints from unknown vulnerabilities with unified endpoint security is expected to be scheduled on August 5th and 6th. According to the time period that is described in this slide, I encourage you to join them. In case if you would like to have a personalized demo scheduled on any of these modules discussed so far, you can visit this link or reach our chat support for scheduling the demo. Thank you all for your valuable time. You have a wonderful day ahead.